In 2025, I'm asked pretty often about, are we entering recession? Are we in recession? As recession started, so I saw that there's a weak labor jobs report coming out of BLS, and remember that take the L out of that, and it's just a different two-letter function. Been a lot of hoopla about got to cut interest rates or we're going to be in trouble. You can go on and on with the things that people worry about, and some of these worries are legitimate. Some of them are ones that I've spoken about in the past. Things like, what will be the impact of the tariffs, etc. And thinking about all that stuff is perfectly valid. Of course, the reality in economics and in capital markets is that the leverage really is in thinking about what other people don't think about that's important. And I'm going to give you one simple little indicator. I mean, people say, are we in recession? Well, I know a way to tell if you might be in recession or you're not. And it's basically 100% flawless. There's no real exceptions to it in over 100 years. It's near perfect. It's as perfect as you can get. You may love your spouse more than I love my spouse, but I guarantee you it's more perfect than your spouse is. Now, here's the way it works. I'm more perfect than you or I are. Just to be clear relative to you versus, let's say, your spouse. Paul Samuelson was a legendary economist and said when I was a teenager, a long time ago, almost 60 years ago, that the stock market has forecast, he said something like, 7 out of the last 5 recessions, something like that. And that's true. But sometimes the stock market, like in 2022 or 1987, goes down when there's no recession. Here's the part nobody thinks about. You do not ever get a classic business cycle recession, what you think of as a recession. The only exception in my lifetime I'll come back to has been COVID, which was not a normal recession, but more of a government-induced contraction with the lockdowns, where the stock market didn't peak beforehand as measured by the S&P 500, and in more modern times, last 50 years, the world stock market as a whole, the stock market always peaks first. If the stock market has not peaked, if it's hit a high just recently, as I'm speaking, as this video is being recorded, stock market hit a new all-time high today in the US and in the world. It is falling for months before you ever enter a recession. Now, mind you, when you enter a recession, there isn't a bell that goes off that says you're in a recession. That doesn't happen. There's an entity that comes back later and is officially the measure of when a recession begins and when a recession ends. The stock market always falls before a recession starts, and sometimes it falls when it doesn't. But if it hasn't fallen, a recession hasn't started, you've got a few months, because it falls for a few months before you enter a recession. You really only have to start worrying about, are we in a recession, when you're seeing the stock market fall for a few months. Now, mind you, just so, in the same way, exactly, in reverse, and also with perfection, the stock market always bottoms in a bear market bottom before a recession is over. So it actually tells you when to start looking for better economic times ahead, although those better economic times ahead are, again, going to be 3, 6, 9 months before you get to those better times. But the stock market, once it starts rising off the bottom of a bear market, is telling you, better times ahead, better times ahead, better times ahead. Yes, sometimes the stock market falls when you don't get a recession. But you don't get a recession unless the stock market falls for a few months. So what does that say to you as you look at this video? You don't got to worry about a recession in the U.S. or global economy Maybe some individual countries overseas screw themselves up. There's always little countries screwing themselves up. But for the U.S. or the world as a whole, you're not in a recession until you've seen the market fall for about 3 months or more. You can worry about it then. When we get to that point, I'll be back talking about recessions again. And thank you very much for listening to me. Hi, this is Ken Fisher. Subscribe to the Fisher Investment YouTube channel if you like what you've seen. Click the bell to be notified as soon as we publish new videos.